and it's time to talk about our sponsor Low6, who of course present this show, and we've been doing our picks during the Premier League. We did our picks on the last show for the first night, and then we carried on putting our picks out on Twitter over the next few days as well, and got to give you guys an update. I'm sure you're all wondering what the score is between myself and you, Burton. 36-25 to me after the first 5 nights, but still a very long way to go, and I'll tell you a little bit more about the contest that Low6 will be putting on next week for you guys to get involved in. But first, let's do our picks for that night 6 on Monday of the Premier League. First game up is the appreciation minute itself, Rob Cross against Gary Anderson. How do you see this game going?
Well, I did say earlier in the show that I think this match will decide who makes it to the second phase of the Premier League and who will be going home. And I think it'll be the world finalist going home, Gary Anderson. I'm really sold that Rob Cross is going to bounce back this year. Not necessarily, everything that he did 2 years ago. And that means his ranking will drop because he's defending money at 2 major championships that he won 2 years ago. But he's going to not slide nearly as much as a lot of people were fearing at the start of the year. And I think he'll end the year in the top 16, which might sound like a weird thing to say. That's a fairly good year for someone to start the year number 4 and finish in the top 16. But that means he's going to have a top 10 year. And that's where Rob Cross is. Rob Cross is a top 10 player. He did not play like it last year for a lot of reasons, but he still is one of the 10 best players in the world. Gary Anderson, also one of the 10 best players in the world, and is starting to show that again. But I think Rob Cross is playing a little bit better than Gary Anderson, and is a little bit hungrier than Gary Anderson, and a little bit more consistent than Gary Anderson right now. And that's what you need across the Premier League, and that's what you need in this match. So I'm going for the appreciation minute to move closer to safety and push Gary Anderson closer to the brink. 7-4 to Rob Cross.
I had Rob Cross down here as well. I was going to go a little bit closer. I've got it going the full 12 legs, 7-5. But like you say, it's a very big game to kick things off for the second week of the Premier League, if you like. Both these players have got a identical record. Each night they've drawn, then they've won, then they've lost, then they've won, then they've lost. If they're going to carry that on, they've got to draw. They've got to share the points. But I'm going with Rob Cross as well. Gary Anderson's had Rob Cross's number quite a bit on TV. But it's hard to call what Gary Anderson is going to turn up at the moment, because he can put in a good performance one night, the following night it doesn't quite come out from him. But Rob Cross, he seems fired up as well. I don't know if you saw his interview that he did after one of his games, and he had a bit of a go at Wayne Mardle for saying about his pause that he does between throws when he's going for the double, but it seems to be working for him. He's got the points on the board, he's playing better than what we've seen in recent times, and he seems like he is getting back into some form, not the form of his first year on the PDC Tour 2017, but heading in that direction. So like you, I'm going with Rob. I'm going to go 7-5 though.
And now second match of the night, and it's the man in 9th, but with the second highest average in the field, Jose de Sousa, going against James Wade, who's just 1 point above him in 7th. How do you see this one?
Again, I think this is a hard one to call. If they'd have done like the 9 nights back to back and not had this break that we've had between night 5 and night 6, then I would have gone with Jose, because he'd have gone into that night off the back of that win against Dimitri full of confidence. James Wade, I guess you can say, still getting to grips with being in the Premier League, because as we all know, Gerwyn Price pulled out, or had to pull out because he tested positive for the virus in the hotel. He was ready to play, and James Wade was there as a backup, and he got the nod. He got in last minute, and there was a bit of talk as well. It came out pretty early on that Monday that James Wade was going to be in. People were saying, you've got to back him now to win the Premier League. It's typical Wade if he goes on and wins the title. But as we've seen with other tournaments, the World Grand Prix, a couple of players come in and done well. The Premier League, it's a bit different, isn't it? If you lose in the World Grand Prix, you're out. You don't play any more games. Premier League, you lose a game, you're still in. You've got at least 9 nights. And to get to grips with playing in a tournament like that, when you didn't expect to be in, James Wade came and did his test, but he still didn't expect to be there. He expected to be home the following day. He's done well, I think, to get 5 points from his 5 games, and he is a bit of a handicapper's nightmare, because he can play poorly one night and then the next night beat Michael van Gerwen. You're not quite sure what you're going to get from him, but I think because of that, I'm going to go down the middle. I'm going to go with a 6-all draw for this one.
Yeah, I mean, you started by saying, if they had played straight through without taking a bit of a break, you would have fancied Jose because he would have been coming in with confidence. But again, you could say similar again for James Wade, because yes, he's on 5 points, 2 wins, a draw, and 2 defeats. But those 2 wins were the last 2 nights. beating Michael Van Gerwen. Okay, Van Gerwen had his lowest average since his debut year in the Premier League. And okay, James Wade didn't have to do much to beat Glenn Durrant, but a win's a win. And a win over Michael Van Gerwen is a win over Michael Van Gerwen no matter how Michael Van Gerwen plays. So James Wade has to be taking some confidence in this. And this is the type of match that Wade you'd expect if he is going to just wade through and beat a player who's on fire. That's exactly what you have in Jose de Sousa here. That said, I think getting a win will settle some of those nerves that it's weird saying that Jose de Sousa showed, but he did show some nerves as well as he's played. He should have gotten over the line against Nathan Aspinall, and he, made some of his patented counting mistakes, but he also missed some darts near the end, which he wasn't missing until he had a chance to get over the line. That makes a big difference. I think now that he has that win, he'll settle him down, and he's just playing too good for James Wade right now. Wade, I think, will step up a bit now that he has a chance to get his bearings in the Premier League that he wasn't expecting, but Jose de Sousa is just playing on a different level. I'm going 7-3 to the Portuguese.
Third game of the night, and going into the night, it will be the battle of the top two. It is Johnny Clayton against Dimitri Van den Bergh. I don't really think I should be asking you who's going to win this one because we've got one of them on the show this week, but how do you see it going?
Well, I'm going to break with tradition and not going to pick our guest to lose. I'm going to pick a draw here, 6-6. I'm doing that because I honestly don't know how this one's going to turn out. As brilliant as Johnny Clayton has been so far, so is Dimitri Van den Bergh. Dimitri Van den Bergh has played 4 really, really good matches. The only time he didn't was when he whitewashed Glenn Durrant. And what do you expect for him to do in that match? He didn't do anything wrong. It's just ran into someone who wasn't playing well. The other 4 were all really good, even the loss to Jose de Sousa. Jose was just unplayable in that match. But Johnny Clayton's been pretty much the same all year. There's nothing to separate these two on paper other than the 1 point at the table. Beyond that, they're both playing at or near the top of their game night in, night out. I think we're going to see that again, and I'm going to go for a 6-all draw.
I'm with you on my bit of paper down here. I had a 6-all draw as well when I was making my notes earlier, and it is, again, a hard one to call because both these players have took to the Premier League very well. They're the top 2 at the moment. There's not much between them in the stats. Just looking there, you've got Johnny Clayton with his 100 average, but Dimitri's not that far behind, and we've seen some of the performances that he put in last week. He's very capable of getting in that top 4, and it's been well documented the injury that he picked up, or it got worse, if you can say that, after the World Match Play. How far would he have progressed without that hindrance? We don't know, but he's done pretty well for himself since then with the Grand Slam semi-final, and a lot of the time it's been some big performances that have stopped him going further. The Dave Chisholm won in the World Championship, James Wade coming back at him in that Grand Slam semi-final, could have been talking about him as a 2-time major winner going into this Premier League, but I think now he's got the knee sorted and he's got into this Premier League pretty well so far. I'm expecting him to carry it on, and Johnny Clayton as well. What more can you say about him? He's continuing to play to the top level that we've seen all year. So, yeah, hard to split them at the moment. So I'm going to go 6-all as well.
4th match of the night, the man who's currently bottom of the table on 0 points, Glenn Durrant, going against the man who's in 4th, just barely clinging on to a spot in the top 4, Michael Van Gerwen. How do you see this one?
I mean, you've got to go with a Michael Van Gerwen win, but on the other side of things, you look at the record that Glenn Durrant has against Michael Van Gerwen on TV, that brilliant game that they had at the World Match Play a couple of years ago, and the World Series last year, the Premier League last year, how well Glenn played to get them wins against Michael, but he's just not playing to that level he's 12 months ago. So you've got to go with Michael Van Gerwen, but you look at some of the performances that he put in last week. Okay, he's in that top 4 at the moment, but he's already dropped 4 points. He's drawn a couple of games. He's lost a game. One of the games that he won, he had with a 92 average against Peter Wright, who played even worse than him. He wasn't feeling very well. So you're kind of not sure what we're going to get. And you call him the handicapper's nightmare, Michael, at the minute. And yes, it is fair to say if you're going to do a bet on what his average is going to be, it is very hard because it just goes up and down at the minute. If he puts in an average like that 92 or the 90, Glenn Durrant could easily come away with a point in this one. But I'm not going to be that brave. I'm going to go with Michael to pull out a better performance, one of the better ones, and Glenn to probably play the same or play a little bit better, but it's not going to be enough on this occasion. I'm going to go 7-2 to Michael Van Gerwen, and I'm going to play my joker for this game as well.
Yeah, it's tough to see Glenn keeping that magnificent mark against Van Gerwen at least on television, going with what we've seen so far. Even MVG's worst match, and not just worst this Premier League, but worst he's had in the last 8 Premier Leagues, is still better than Glenn's best so far over the first week. And while I think Glenn is improving, and even if Michael Van Guren is fading a little bit, although I don't think that is necessarily right, that he's fading, even if that is the case, there is still right now a gulf between these two, maybe even an ocean between these two, and it's going to be rough sailing for Glenn Durrant in this one. I'll go for a different scoreline than you. Last couple matches have been 7-3, or last one was 7-3 for Dazza. Definitely could have been 7-3, or even closer against Gary Anderson. He had some opportunities. Almost want to go 7-4, give him his best performance, but I'll go 7-3 again, and I'll play my joker.
Final game then on Monday, and it is Nathan Aspinall against Peter Wright. How do you see this game going?
Another big match in the relegation battle, as well as a big one at the top. And it's funny saying that because, they're currently tied for second, with Peter Wright only out of the 3-way mega tie for second on goal differential so far. But if Jose de Sousa wins, the loser of this match could very well find themselves only a point out of the bottom 2 with 3 nights to play. So it's a battle at the top of the table, but because of how tight it is, it's also a battle at the bottom of the table. And it was a great first week for Nathan Aspinall. We haven't talked about him yet on this show, but we need to give him credit where it's due. He played fantastic almost every night, and still, easily could have had 4 wins, but easily as well could have had 4 losses. And that tells you how difficult it is. He has those couple of draws, but those could have been defeats. Peter Wright, not playing at his best right now, but not playing that far, not playing poorly by any stretch of the imagination. Almost feel like another draw is coming the way this Premier League's going, but I'm gonna go Peter Wright to start to get it right and just get over the line 7-5. And that might put some pressure on Nathan with 3 nights to go, but he's playing well enough that you could see him bouncing right back.
Well, 7-5 is exactly the same scoreline that I had on my sheet. I'll go a little bit different. I'll make it 7-4 to Peter Wright on this occasion. But like you say, just echoing what you said there, we do have to give Nathan Aspinall some credit because he was one of the favourites with the bookies going into this Premier League to be eliminated. They were saying it was going to be the 2 finalists from last year that were going to be finishing in the bottom 2. We were mentioning Nathan Aspinall when we talked about players that could be in that bottom 2 when we did our preview for it, and he said it himself in his first interview when he beat Glenn Durrant in the opening game last week that he wasn't happy with people writing him off, and he's proven us all wrong. Everyone has doubted him over the last few months heading into this Premier League when his form's not quite been there. But you look at the string of performances that he put in last week, and he showed his battling qualities. The 105 average that he had against Michael Van Gogh in the last game is the one that catches the eye. But to play well like he did in the other games as well deserves a lot of credit. But on the other side of things, you've got Peter Wright, who you're not quite sure what you're getting at the moment. The last game that we saw last week, he brought out the wobbly darts and he was 5-3 down against Rob Cross. It looked like Rob Cross was going to get at least a point. Peter Wright comes back and wins the last 4 legs and he gets those 2 points ahead of him. So it's hard to see what darts we're going to get from Peter Wright, what performance we're going to get. I think there's going to be revenge on the mind because Peter Wright did lose to Nathan in the playoffs last year, and Peter Wright will look at that as a big missed opportunity to win the Premier League last year. So I think he'll want to get a little bit of revenge. So I'll go a little bit more one-sided than you. I'll go 7-4. And if you guys want to get involved in the picks, download the PDC Picks app. They're free to enter contest. Monday they've got a £1,000 prize pool, and then for the next 3 nights, Tuesday through to Thursday, you've got a £500 pool. Pick your winners, who you think is going to win each game, or if you think there's going to be any draws. 18 plus UK residents only. T&Cs apply. Please gamble responsibly. BeGambleAware.org for more on that.